Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Jay. Our featured speaker this morning, Jill Feeney, is an independent associate with Legal Shield, offering identity theft and legal solutions to employees, individuals, families, and small businesses. Jill is certified identity theft risk management specialist certified, has received extensive identity theft training, and has been educating others on this serious crime for the past 8 years. Jill and her husband live in Troy. Please welcome our guest speaker this morning, Jill Feeney.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm very honored to be here. When Chris Durda asked me if I would come and speak to your organization, I was very pleased to get the invitation and looking forward to today. This is certainly not necessarily a fun topic to talk about. It is a very serious crime, but I think it's very important to make sure that we all understand what I call the realities of identity theft. And I'd like to start out by asking, just a show of hands, how many of you have been a victim or know someone who's been a victim of identity theft? Okay, look around the room. Quite a few hands going up. This is unfortunately no longer just a crime where it's happening in other countries or to other people. It's happening to us and to people that we know and love. This is a crime that really is an equal opportunity crime. The thieves don't care what your age is, what your race is, or even what your economic status is, because it's no longer just about them getting your credit cards or your bank accounts. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm only going to be able to touch on the sort of the tip of the iceberg today to give you some information. But I do want to start out by saying also my goal today is not to scare you, but some of the things that you hear may scare you a little bit because it may be news to you in terms of how heinous a crime this really is. So I'm just going to hopefully give you enough information that you understand the reality of identity theft. You will have some tips and resources, and we'll have a little time to go through a few of those, but a document that I've prepared will be on your website in about a week, so you can take a look at that, and that will have all the details. And this is going to help you hopefully then make better decisions for yourself and your family in terms of reducing your risk and putting a plan in place. So today we're just going to talk about the types of identity theft, some of the ways our information is taken, some action steps to reduce your risk, and then depending on time, maybe just a little bit on some of the services that are available. Let's make sure that we all understand what identity theft is. It's the fraudulent use of personally identifiable information by a thief to obtain goods or services, gain employment, commit a crime, obtain a benefit, or prevent revealing their true identity. And I show this because, again, I want you to understand it's not just about someone getting your credit cards. What do you think the most important piece of personally identifiable information is that someone can get from you? Very good. Social Security number. Absolutely. So I'm going to start by asking you a question. As consumers, we have little ability to stop or prevent identity theft. Raise your hand if you think this is true. Got a couple of hands. False. This might be the first scary piece of information you get today. Unfortunately, this is true, and this is not just me saying this. This comes from all the experts, and the main reason is because our information is just out there. Think about it. Every place you've ever worked or gone to school, any financial institution, your doctor, your dentist, our info is out there. And the main reason this is true is that you and I cannot control what other people are doing with our information. Almost every day we hear about another data breach, right? Everybody been hearing about all those? I'll talk about those in just a minute. That's why this is true, that you and I can't control it. There are some things we can do to reduce our risk, and I'll go through a few of those. But it's important to know this here. And there's a gentleman who is the founder of Identity Theft Council who says it used to be that I'd tell people all the bad stuff about identity theft and then cheer them up at the end with the 10 things you can do to prevent it. Well, we're running out of things you can do to prevent it. I believe it's really impossible to stop identity theft, and the focus is really on minimizing the chances it will happen to you and minimizing the damage and the long-term impact if it does. And then that's when the experts also say to have some type of identity theft protection in place. So a couple of statistics, 12.7 million individuals experienced some form of identity theft in 2014. And I hate to tell everyone, and I'm included in this statistic, 44% of identity theft victims in 2014 were over the age of 50. So it's not just happening to those young whippersnappers out there that are out on their computers and their smartphones and everything else. It's happening to everyone. A couple of things on the types of identity theft, again, to show you the breadth of this. Government documents or benefits is one of the big ones. This is where someone can obtain employment in our name as long as they have our Social Security number, which unfortunately is very easy to get by someone hacking in or being sold on the black market. It's also someone who can apply for or receive government benefits, for example, Social Security. I know of a woman in this area who applied for her Social Security benefits and was told, you've been receiving your benefits for 3 years. You know, what do you do at that point? No, sorry, that wasn't me. Could you just kind of wipe that clean and start me over again? That's where you need some expert help to get you through that. Someone can issue or forge government documents such as filing taxes in your name. How many of you have been hearing about tax fraud? Yeah, it's huge. I'm going to give you some statistics on that in just a minute. So someone who, they will file before you or I even kind of get it together to do that. They file very early. And in fact, Jay was telling me that your nephew happened to. So they file early. Now, you or I go to file, or our financial tax person files for us, and it shows up that we've already filed. Again, pretty hard to call the IRS and say, you know, that wasn't me. It's a long, drawn-out process to finally get your money for that if that's the case. Bank and credit card. I put these together because they're very similar. This is what people tend to think this is what identity theft is all about, but it can be someone getting your current information, for example, your current credit cards, and racking up your credit card accounts, right? How many of you have had that happen? Yeah, I mean, it's a very common place to have that happen. But what do we do when someone gets our credit cards and uses them? Yeah, you call your credit card company and they cancel it, right? It's a hassle. Absolutely, it's a hassle. But it's pretty easy to take care of. It's pretty difficult when someone has your social number and does some other things in your name. But also in the bank and credit card category, it's important to know that one of the other pieces, not just them getting your current accounts, but opening up new accounts in your name. So someone who opens up, for example, a new credit card, you won't know that that's happening unless you have some type of credit monitoring. That's important to have, all right? Medical is one of the kind of scariest ones out there. They're getting our medical ID information, going and getting procedures done in our name, maxing out our benefits. Now, unfortunately, if, for example, I am the thief and I have Deb's information and I go in and say that I'm Deb, I'm O positive, Deb is AB negative, I'm diabetic, Deb is not. Now Deb's records are changed. She goes in for emergency care, and unfortunately, there have been deaths attributed to this. So I'll give you some tips in terms of always checking your explanation of benefits and those kinds of things to make sure you know if this is happening to you. And there's also some ways of having your medical ID monitored to see if it's being bought or sold on the black market. Criminal. Let me give you an example of this. I know of a senior, again, who on a Saturday was pulled over for speeding. The officer ran his information, came back to him and said, I need to ask you to step out of the car and put your hands behind your back. And he said, for speeding? He said, no, sir, there are 2 warrants out for your arrest. What they found out was that someone in his local Secretary of State's office was creating driver's licenses and then selling them. And so someone had this gentleman's driver's license information. It was this senior's information, but the thief put his own photo on it. Commit some crimes. Rather than handing over his own driver's license, he handed over this other gentleman. So this is an example also of how you may not know you've been a victim right away. They say it can take an average of 14 months before you ever find out. And then one we don't hear about too often, but I'm taking these categories from the FTC, they use phone and utilities. So someone who gets a landline in your name, or gets electric or gas in your name. Now, of those categories, the one that had the highest percentage of identity theft complaints reported in 2014 was government documents or benefits. 38.7% of all identity theft fell in that category, and that's because of tax fraud. 32.8% of all identity theft. It was not only last year, but the 2 years prior to that, tax identity theft was also the most reported. It claimed 100,000 victims in 2014. I put this next piece up there to show you, again, because so many people think credit card fraud is such a big piece of it. It's only 17.4% of all identity theft. New accounts are quite a bit higher. So someone opening up a new account in your name, again, one of the important reasons to have some type of credit monitoring. So how are these things getting our information, right? Lots of different ways. Phishing. Everybody heard of phishing with the PH at the beginning, right? Phishing is normally they would send you an email that looks very legitimate. It may look like it comes directly from Chase Bank or someone else that you may or may not do business with. And they're going to somewhere in that email say, click here for more information, or click here to update your information. And when you click on it, it can do a number of things. It can download malware or spyware on your computer that now they can trace and track what you're doing. Or it can also just infect your computer with a virus. One of the things that may be downloaded is the ability for them to track what you are typing on your keyboard, which is what key logging is. So you now have downloaded something because you clicked on that link, and let's say you go to your bank account then and you put your username and password in. If they have downloaded the type of malware that they can track your key logs, they now have your username and passwords, right? So definitely make sure that you have your antivirus program updated at all times. Skimming. Everybody hear about skimming? Where we hear about this oftentimes is at an ATM or at a gas station where you're putting in your credit card. Someone can put in an identity thief would put in a plastic, what's called a skimmer, that you or I can't see. And when you put your card in there and then you plug in your information, it's reading that. Another type of skimmer is something where the thieves can buy online. And you may have seen this, 2020 has done things, 60 Minutes, where there's a small machine that they can buy. Gentlemen, you walk around with your credit cards in your wallet in your back pocket, ladies in our purse, and this skimmer can read the magnetic strip on your credit cards, and they don't even have to be right next to you. They can be across the room reading that. So I don't know if you've heard of them. This is a tip that is on my resource sheet, or my tip sheet. RFID, radio frequency identification. You can get wallets, blocking cards to block out those skimmers. So you might want to take a look at some of those. Also the social networking, How many of you are doing any type of social networking? Okay, got some hands up here, yeah. So it's not just, again, those youngsters doing that. People are just putting way too much information on social networking. You should not have your birth date on there. If you have, the month and the day, okay, but don't put the year, don't put the year on there. And be careful about posting, or tell your children, your grandchildren about posting where you are at all times. People can track that. And that's how the thieves are getting our information. They can do it just by stealing things from our purse or our wallet, right? The trash, and then data breaches. We're hearing about this over and over and over again. The data breaches and hacking in particular had the highest incidence rate of any way that thieves get our information in 2014. So again, that's why that first statement is true, that you and I can't control it anymore because everyone else is using our information. These are some of the more recent data breaches that we may have all heard of. You see the ones on the left there, all the healthcare agencies. And another good example of how they're not just getting credit cards, they're getting names, dates of birth, our medical information. In some of these, it was employee information. And not just for the person who is covered, but for the family members who are covered. So again, it's everyone who's being impacted by this. T-Mobile just recently. Everybody hear about that? Maybe about 2 weeks ago, all the information that they got. And did you hear about the director of the CIA about 2 days ago? Yeah, he was using an AOL account. I'm not even going to comment on that. That's kind of one of those really sorts of things. Again, shows just the vulnerability and the extent to which these hackers are going, just to show what they can do out there. In 2014, there were 86 million records exposed in data breaches. So far in 2015, 175 million. It has more than doubled this year. It's not just the number of data breaches, it's how many records of ours that they're getting. So again, you need more than just credit monitoring. You need something that's monitoring to see if the information they're getting on us is on those black market websites. And oftentimes, have any of you ever gotten a letter saying, sorry, your information has been breached or been taken? Okay, some hands up here. And then oftentimes you're given maybe a year or 2 years of credit monitoring. Think about it. If what they got is your healthcare information or they got your social security number, I'm not saying credit monitoring isn't important, but 70% of identity theft will never show up on your credit report. So you need some additional privacy and security monitoring in addition to that. So a couple of other facts here. Children are being targeted 35 times more than adults. Because think about it. When do you have to have a social number for children? When they're born, right? So the thieves have figured this out, and it's like an 18-year playing field for them. Till Johnny goes at 18 to get a credit card or get a loan, now finds out things are down the tubes. All right, so you'll want to make sure that your children, your grandchildren are being monitored. And unfortunately, here's a statistic that we don't necessarily want to be in the top 10 for. Michigan ranks number 6 in the number of identity theft complaints by state in 2014, and that's because of tax identity theft. Unfortunately, we have a ton of tax identity thieves here in Michigan. So my key learning points for you: identity theft is real and it's not going away. It's not just about credit cards. And unfortunately, we're all vulnerable. But there are things we can do to reduce our risk and have a risk management plan in place. So I'm just going to go over a few of these again. I have a full tips and resource document that will be on your website, which includes these and many more. So in your wallet or purse, limit the number of cards you carry. and don't carry your Social Security card. Now, I know those of you that are on Medicare, we talked about this at our table earlier. That is your Social Security number, right? I wish I could tell you that that's going to change immediately. There have been some bills that are being passed and even more that are eventually going to change that, but it's going to take years before those who have it now, they will change that identifier for you. All right, so don't have much to tell you on that. Although, Chris, was it you talking about what? One of the things that is mentioned is you can make a copy of your Medicare card, block out the last 4 digits, and just keep that copy in your wallet. Chris, you said you protected that. You got it in it laminated, so you can do that. And then keep your Medicare card at home and take it with you only when you know you're going to the doctor. But that will help a bit in terms of if you have that in your wallet. At home, make sure you're cross-cut shredding. This is where it makes it look more like confetti than anything. So anything that has personal information on it should be shredded. If you are mailing a bill, for example, don't just put it in your mailbox and put up the red flag. Because what does the red flag do? It alerts the identity thieves who are going to go through and get that and says, hey, I got something in here you might want. Come and get it. If you can, please take it to the post office, all right? Opt out of pre-approved credit card offers. I'm finding the more and more I do these presentations that people don't know you can do this. This info is also on that document that will be on your website. How many of you get a lot of those pre-approved credit card offers? Yeah, ooh, hands going up. I opted out probably 5 years ago, and it's amazing how reduced the number of those are that I get. You can go to optoutprescreen.com, put in some information, and I don't know if it's the same way that it was, but it used to be you could opt out for a few years, and then they come back and tell you you can do it for life. And you still will get some. They can still send them to you if it's a company that you are currently doing business with, but they can no longer have a third party send them to you. So that's a great tip for you. On your phone, this is one way where seniors unfortunately are getting scammed in greater numbers. Getting a call, and it's the identity thieves that are calling, they're kind of recycling some of the different groups that they say they are. The IRS, someone will call and say they're from the IRS. Anybody gotten those calls? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And either, you owe X amount of money and you better get us the money now. I even had someone call me and tell me that they said, we are sending the police to your house now. I see some heads nodding. We're sending the police to your house now. And, some people laugh and go, well, how could you believe that? They're just downright mean on the phone and very intimidating. And, until you're in that situation, you don't know. The IRS is never going to call you at home. Your bank is not going to call you and say, we need you to update your information with us. No, they have your information. They will send you a letter if that's the case. So we just need to be very aware and not give out information unless you are the one who actually made that call. Use a password on your cell phone. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you have a password, but AARP says 44% of those over 50 don't have a password on their phone, especially if you have a smartphone with additional information on it. It takes just a few extra seconds to put that password in, and that will keep people from being able to get into your phone. Geotagging. Let me ask you this. How many of you do have smartphones? Oh, great. Lots of people in the room. Geotagging, for those that don't know, for example, when you take a photo, unless you turn this security piece off, it will label where that photo is taken. So someone who knows how to go in and do that can see exactly where that photo is taken. And then it gets posted, you know, whether you post to Facebook or, again, some of your family might let them know this. Now, this is where a lot of the thieves are going after us, our children. They are seeing where those photos are taken. So if it's taken at your home, your children's home, they now know where that is. You can go into your settings in your smartphone, and it's under privacy and then your phone, and you can turn off geotagging. If you don't know how to do that, look on the sheet that I give you, or just call your cell phone company and ask them. They will tell you how to turn off geotagging, or you can Google it, as we do almost everything else in life, right? We Google it. On your computer, here's another one, very similar to the phone calls. This is where some of the phishing crimes come in. Don't click on links or pop-ups or downloads that come from, whether it's an individual or from a company, unless you absolutely know where it comes from. But again, be very careful. I've gotten many phishing emails that look like it comes from a legitimate company, but it's very easy, unfortunately, to copy a logo and make it look like this company is sending something. It's best to go directly to the website on your browser as opposed to clicking in the email. Oftentimes, when you have a site where it's asking you for your username and password, it will say, do you want us to remember this? Yeah, good. I see heads. Just say no. That's a good time to just say no, especially if it's your bank or anything that has personal information. Just say no, all right? And whether you may or may not know this, but there's a way of knowing when a site is secure for you to put in personal information, especially, for example, if you are buying something online. The web address, normally in the browser, it will say HTTP. If it's a secure site, there's an S, HTTPS, which stands for secure, and you'll oftentimes see that little lock logo in there. So always look for that before you put your information in. Talked about passwords on phone, on your computer. You should have passwords that cannot be easily figured out. You can see on the right there, I don't know if you can read those. Those were the top 10 passwords of 2014. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So creative, right? How much more creative can you get? Or password. There's another creative one. You can see yes, again, it can be a pain to have a lot of passwords, but you need to have different passwords for different sites, especially, again, the ones where you're putting personal information in, bank accounts, those kinds of things. Have different passwords. And what the experts say now is it's best to have a passphrase. So something that you may say, or people will talk about, I'm going to take a sentence from the Bible, and then you take the first letter of that phrase, something that you'll remember, maybe change a letter here or there to make it capital or to make it a symbol, and that's a passphrase that you can remember. Some financial and credit, very quickly. Enrolling credit monitoring. All right, we talked about that. And monitor your credit reports, and I should put the word regularly in there. Whether you're aware or not, you can get one free credit report each year from each of the 3 credit repositories, but the only site to go to is annualcreditreport.com. That's the one through the government. We have great commercials on freecreditreport.com. They are not free. All right. So annual credit report, and space those out. Get one each quarter to be tracking to see if there's any activity. You can set up automatic alerts. Those of you that do anything online in terms of your credit cards or your bank, I have it set up through my credit cards and my bank that if there's any activity, I get a text immediately. So I can go to my ATM I can get money out, and before I even get the money out, I'm getting the ding on my phone that says money has been taken out. So it's good to know, because if someone else is taking that money out, that's when it's really important to know. And you know you can get your Social Security statements online now. You should be doing that. All right. Talked a little bit about reducing your risk of identity theft in terms of medical. Always review your explanation of benefits. If there's anything on there that's not yours, you need to make a call on that. And again, for those of you with Medicare, this is doesn't really apply, but your Social Security number, you can tell your family, your friends, is not required for medical treatment and is legally not to be used. So I tell people when they're going to a new doctor, filling out the form, if it still has a spot for Social Security, don't put it on there. They don't need it. The main reason they have it on there is just because they always have, and they don't know that it should be taken off. All right. So those are just some highlights for you. Even the assistant director of the FBI's cyber division says you're going to be hacked, so have a plan. When it comes to identity theft, the best thing to do is to do your due diligence, to follow some of these tips. On the resource sheet that you have, I give you a lot of other places you can look for tips. And think about having some type of privacy and security monitoring in place with some consultation and restoration and coverage for yourself and or your family, because nothing is 100% preventable when it comes to identity theft, but there are ways to get help in restoring your identity. So for those of you that are interested, afterwards I will be at the table outside. I do have some information on an identity theft protection plan. More than happy to talk to you or to answer any of your questions. So I thank you, and I think we're opening it up for questions, whether it's for me or for the NCRO.
You know, it seems to me if they have the last four, they can get the rest somehow or other.
The question is, we're often asked for the last four of our SOCH on websites. I would say it depends on the website that's asking you that. If it's and why they're asking you that.
Well, maybe it's not so much on the website, but I'll call up one of my accounts and they'll ask for the last four.
Right, okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, because for the most part, first of all, you initiated the call, so you know who you're calling. And they're doing that to validate that you are who you say you are.
If you have questions, please line up to the podium. We're not chasing you around. Just come up to one of the podiums here. Thanks.
That works better.
Okay, so I have a question here. Back a couple years ago when Target had this big data breach, and I went on their website they gave me at the store, they wanted more information on the website than I would ever have gotten from the data breach, so I just changed credit cards instead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, when Target had this data breach a couple years ago, and I went on to get this credit report thing, so they wanted more information than I was willing to give over the, on an online thing. I mean,
that's your call on that, but for anyone to monitor your credit, they do need to have your Social Security number, because that's how these things are monitored. If you're not comfortable doing that, don't do it. I wish I had a better answer for you, but.
Work? I don't. Does this work?
Now it's working.
Well, just personally, I've had my changed 3 credit cards. My wife's changed 2. She bought one Christmas. She bought about $500 worth of Bobby Brown makeup over in Portland, Oregon.
And she didn't want that?
Yeah, so we do check our statements every month. Now, I've heard in the area of encryption that they have software out now that can get through encryption. So that's like on those HTTPS sites and all that, which I think they use encryption on. to get through. And also in the, I've heard they now have passwords that, well, I mean, software that goes through passwords, and if they get enough personal information, they put, I don't know if you've heard a
Can you
lot of that.
hold your,
Sorry. I just
not
wondered,
that close, not that close.
I just wondered if there's been a lot of, the information in that where they're getting the encryption and the passwords now are being hacked a lot more.
Yeah, it's one of the, I don't know if you heard the question about passwords and the hackers being able to get those. They're one step ahead of us, unfortunately, in many cases. Whether it's, a firewall that a company has or you or I have, but that should not preclude us from continuing to have good passwords, because the more difficult those passwords are for them to figure out, the better that is for you and I.
Well, the other thing is my wife's, all her medical information was that she was through Schmeeding Health Center, her previous location, and they hacked that. And what can you do to make sure, because all of that, of course, all of the family information on the children and everything was also stolen. What can you do in the medical area to prevent people from using your benefits?
You can check your explanation of benefits, and you can also get from your doctor, I believe it's once a year, you can get all of your records to make sure that no one else is using that. And then I've just been recommending also to everyone privacy and security monitoring that can monitor to see if your medical ID is being bought and sold on the black market.
Would the like LifeLock and those type of programs, do they watch that?
I can't speak for them. I don't know in particular. I can tell you afterwards in terms of the program I represent.
Thank you.
My question is, we were told that by the end of the year, this year, we'll all be getting, in this country, credit cards with a chip. How much safer should we feel?
That's a really loaded question. It was actually supposed to happen by October 10th, I think, was October 1st or October 10th was the date. Obviously didn't happen. I have one credit card that has the chip in it. It is safer than the strip, but how many of you have one with a chip in it? It also has the strip, right? It still has the strip because they knew that not everybody was going to be ready in time. So it is safer, but I will never tell you that everything is 100% foolproof. But, they've been using the chip in the UK and other places for years, and it has helped reduce that type of identity theft. You're right. You're absolutely right. They only have the chip. Yep, you're right.
Well, yeah, what I was also told was that the October 1 date was that is where the issuing bank or credit agency was no longer going to be responsible for the fraud charges that the merchant or the person so that change is going to take place where your bank is no longer going to give you the break of paying for a fraudulent charge. But
right,
okay.
If they don't have a chip reader. But
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I missed what you said about opting out of something.
The question is opting out of the pre-approved credit card offers that you get in the mail. If you go to optoutprescreen.com.
More recently, I noticed that with homeowners policies and even AAA, they offer you the option of purchasing identity theft help. So I guess that's after the fact, but as little as $35. Is that something worthwhile purchasing, or can you do it on your own anyways?
I always tell people it's better to have something rather than nothing. Is that the best thing to have? No, because you're absolutely right. It's reactive, and it is similar to insurance in that, and I'm speaking generically, so you might want to, I always tell people to double check, do your due diligence and double check, but normally it will pay you back for work that you do to try to kind of clean up the identity theft mess. If you have to mail things, it will pay for your postage.
Okay.
For people who have to take a day off of work. So it works like insurance in that it reimburses you. A better thing would be to have a program where there's a plan that you have experts doing the work for you to
Okay.
restore it.
Okay.
But I always tell people have something rather than nothing.
Hi, I am an identity theft victim. I realize that this is a new industry that will have clients forever, identity theft protection. I want to ask what is being done at a national level to put in place legislation that will punish the criminals. I believe that this is the only way that this particular type of crime can be reduced.
And I certainly don't disagree with you on that at all. I can't speak specifically about what they're doing. Part of the issue is it's very difficult to find the people doing it. In a lot of cases, it's sort of onesie-twosies, and any of you that have gone to that have been a victim of identity theft and you've gone to the police department and filed a police report, normally they tell you there's nothing they're going to do about it.
Well,
It's
anyone
not an
that,
issue.
yeah.
But the bigger ones, the crime rings, they are trying to prosecute.
Well,
it's difficult to find them.
I haven't heard of anyone being convicted of anything.
There have been some. There definitely have
Well,
been
why
some.
they're not publishing them and what are the punishments? Yeah. So
Probably not, but yeah.
How effective is, if you suspect you're a victim or possibly a victim, but they haven't hit your credit cards or your bank account, you can go online, call, go for $10, pay Equifax to do a credit hold on your account so that people, that whoever did the identity theft, if it exists, wouldn't be able to open up an account or really hack into your information. How effective is that?
There's two different types. There's a credit alert and there is a credit freeze.
Yeah.
A credit alert says that a company, for example, if I'm the thief and I go to open up a credit card in your name, the company should contact you and say, hey, is this you? They don't always, and that's only for those that report to a credit reporting agency. For example, when you buy a new phone, oftentimes the phone companies don't go through a credit reporting agency, so they might not call to find out. There's always things that go kind of under the radar. Definitely not a bad thing. And people who have been victims of identity theft, it's always good to put a credit alert. If you put it on one of the credit bureaus, they are required to let the other two credit bureaus know. A credit freeze is the next step, which says nobody, including you, if you have put the credit freeze on, can get any type of credit. You have to lift that. So credit freezes are meant for those people who have been a victim of terrible identity theft, to do that, so that people, and again, there are some things that go under the radar, even with credit freezes. And keep in mind, there's a lot of identity theft that has nothing to do with our credit, right? But
Yeah,
so
it worked
yeah,
for me.
if you've been, sure.
I suspected it might happen, so I paid the $10, and I think I put a freeze on, but you could do it online, and then you can lift it yourself whenever you feel safe.
Yep.
So it's not a bad
It's absolutely out there for people to choose.
Hi, I use a password manager, LastPass, and it generates big, long passwords for my websites and stuff, and I don't have to remember one. How safe, I mean, how do you check how safe the guy that's keeping all your passwords is? Is there some place you can?
That guy in the cloud?
Yeah, well,
What does
it's
he look like?
LastPass is, I guess, is a, they got a gazillion users, but.
Right.
I'm still, what happens if they get bought by somebody, or, is there any guarantees that what they have in place now is going to stay in place?
I would tell you, if any company guarantees you, know when it's ever going to get into or hack into our service,
Oh,
you might want to take a
they
look,
don't
'cause they're-
guarantee that nobody's going to hack in, but they have some, but what they do guarantee is they don't have access to your information. So everything's encrypted on their site,
Right,
everything's
right.
encrypted on your computer.
Yep.
But I mean, the thing is if they get bought out by somebody, the guarantees that they gave you about encrypting your data so that they don't even know what it is. I mean, is that?
I don't know the answer to that. If you didn't hear the beginning, he's talking about services like LastPass or KeyPass, where it will generate passwords for you. Those are actually good services to use. You might look into those if you want. Last, L-A-S-T, Pass, and Key, I believe it's K-E-E, not K-E-Y. I think it's K-E-E, Pass. So those are services that you can look into. I can't tell you if someone buys them out, what's going to happen there. I don't. That's where you have to read the fine print or have your attorney read the fine print and all that stuff. So I appreciate all these
Jill,
questions. I will. Yeah.
One thing, we get the webinar. There are a couple questions that came through from there.
Okay.
If I can, any comments about the hack of Blue Cross Blue Shield, considering that Anthem was only one of the many licenses of Blue Cross Blue Shield Association who were hacked?
Question about Anthem. Is he? I don't know if this person is referring to the other. There were 3 recent Blue Cross Blue Shields. There was Anthem, and I'm trying to quickly. Primera was one, and then what was the other one? And I'm sorry, what was he asking? Just any comments?
Any comment on it?
Well, it's just pretty scary, is all I can tell you, because the information that they're getting is way over and above just name, date of birth, address. It's all our medical information that someone can then go out and do things with. It does raise red flags that it's Blue Cross Blue Shield that has been involved in all of these. I don't know the details on anything else, though.
And just a comment about credit freezes. They're useless if the vendor who is selling something to a thief does not pull a credit bureau file. The freeze doesn't really do anything if they're not looking for that. Go off and look for it.
If they're not.
If the supplier or the vendor doesn't do a credit bureau check,
Exactly.
they could still
Right.
give
That's why
them.
I say there are still a lot of things that fly under the radar that a credit freeze won't be applicable to. One last question here.
Yeah, one more. If there's a breach in your security, whether it's a phone call that you get or credit card or whatever, is there an agency that we could go to and report it rather than to the credit card company or to the person that we're dealing with? Is there a government agency or some entity that will handle this?
Well, I don't know that they will handle it, but you're supposed to report those also to the FTC. On the resource sheet that will be on your website, I give you those steps of what to do. The police report to the FTC. But in terms of, you're talking about what someone will do, you mean someone to help you? Someone to clean up the mess? Or
You want the son of a gun that did it to get caught.
So do I.
Yeah,
so do I.
Who do you go to report this to?
Again, there are services out there. I will tell you, if you want to come and see me, the service that I represent that has some parts and pieces to it where they do that. But they're really, again, if it's a onesie twosie, your police department.
Sounds like you got to hire a
private
detective
if you want to go out
on your own, right?
You may have to in some cases. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Jill.